And allow yourself to settle into a physical position that's comfortable, that you can sit in without fidgeting for, 5-7 minutes. And just allow that awareness to draw inward. There's so much happening in the ever-changing world of form that constantly draws our attention and distracts us. But be very deliberate, be very conscious, and draw that awareness inward. It won't happen automatically. You have to very deliberately grab it and pull it inward. And just allow the awareness to expand within you. The instinct is always for it to jump back into the sounds or the sensations of the world outside. But just keep being very conscious, very mindful, very deliberate about your awareness, about your attention, and just keep drawing it back inward. Back inward. And allow yourself to merge into that place within you that does not change. That despite the size or the shape or the age of the body, despite where in the world the body might be at this moment, there's a place within you that is unchanging, that's stable and eternal. Allow yourself to drop into that place. If you find the mind is distracted, just keep bringing it back. Don't yell at yourself, don't feel badly, but just keep bringing the awareness back. You can use the breath as a beautiful anchor, like a magnet within you, to just draw that awareness inward. Draw it into the breath. Not changing the breath, but just allowing it to serve as a powerful magnet for your attention. And notice that although the breath itself changes, there's an inhalation followed by an exhalation, followed by another inhalation. And sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long, sometimes they're deep, sometimes they're shallow. But notice that although the breath itself changes, allowing your awareness to merge with the breath brings you into a place of unchanging stillness within yourself. So the breath is a vehicle for your awareness to ride from the distractions of the changing world outside to the stillness, the permanence of the true self inside. If the mind wanders, just bring it back. And notice how when you look at that stillness within you, that spaciousness within, that there's a quality of light to it. Light in how it feels, but also light in the very nature of that presence. And just allow the awareness to keep being pulled, magnetized through the breath, carried into that light within, that unchanging light within you. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level in Namaste. And gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be with you all. We start as usual with a question that comes from our online family joining through the internet from around the world. And then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. So there's a microphone right there in the center, and don't be shy. Just feel free to come up to the mic and share your name and your question. But starting in advance with one from our online-based audience. I've been married for over 20 years, and while I love my spouse, we seem to be growing apart in our interests and values. How can I reconnect with my partner on a deeper spiritual level and bring a sense of peace back into our relationship. This is from Susan in London. So a lot of things happen in relationships. The deepest level of love and connection is not actually based on interests and values. It's nice when those overlap. It means that, you've got a wider range of things that you can do together. If one person just wants to meditate and the other one wants to, play tennis, there's less of an overlap. But if you can find shared interests, it's good. It means you've got more things you can do together. Shared values, of course, makes especially things like raising a family much easier. There's not so much compromise you have to do between my values, your values. But these are not ultimately at the core the things that deep love and powerful relationships are rooted in. There's lots of people we share a lot of interests and values with, but who we are not in love with. So we've got to look more deeply than interests and values. I know so many couples who have virtually nothing in common on external levels. You'd look at them and you'd think, really, these two, and yet they're so in love. Okay, they don't necessarily partake in a lot of activities together because there isn't a lot of overlap, but that's okay. So what happens a lot of times in relationship, and if this is something that you're interested in going into deeper, my beloved, dear, beautiful friend, Dr. Bruce Lipton, has written a lot about kind of the neurochemistry of relationship and love. But the bottom line is really powerful, which is what happens is when we are first in love, we are paying attention to the person we love. We're paying attention to being in love. Meaning, we're conscious. We're mindful. We're in the present moment. We're there. Whether you are, lying in bed, driving in a car, having a meal, watching a movie, whatever you're doing, in the early days of a relationship, you're so present, right there. Like every cell of your body is kind of vibrating. And it's not just sexual desire, it's a whole in loveness. And you're so present. What happens over time, particularly when there's kids and mortgages and jobs and in-laws and responsibilities, is our attention goes onto doing. Who's going to pick the kids up? Who's going to grocery shop? Who's going to wash the dishes? Who's going to get the car washed? What items we have on our to-do list? And our time together, rather than just being in the moment together, becomes about things. What should we do about this, and my mother, and your mother, and the kid, and the dog, and the this, and what. And so we're no longer present with each other. And on the deepest spiritual levels, and also on the deepest emotional, psychological, relational levels, you can only have everything that is really powerful and wonderful, or juicy, as Swamiji says, in life when you're present. So if you and I are sitting together and my mind is on the kids and their homework, and we got to finish dinner quickly because, the kid has a math test tomorrow and one of us is going to have to go and quiz him, I'm not with you in that moment. And if I'm not with you, I'm not in love. You can only be in love when you're present. Now, yeah, of course, the love is still there, the love of being together for so many years, the love of the sort of historic love. But there's not an experience of love in the present moment. Because I'm not in the present moment. I'm in my kid's math exam tomorrow. And this is where it's so important to consciously make time to be together. In the same way that we understand spiritually, like, I have to make time to meditate. I'm busy, I'm distracted, I've got a lot on my plate. If I don't set aside time that says, this is my meditation time, this is my japa, this is my yoga and my prayer, your mind is all over the place all day long. You've got to set aside time. This is my me and God time. Or my me and my awareness time. Doesn't matter how you think about it. But we have to set aside the time. In the same way, you have to set it aside in relationship. You don't have to do fancy things together. It may be something as simple as walking the dog, doing the dishes together, whatever it may be. Or it may just be a meal. But having some ground rules, that during this time, as tempting as it is, we're not going to solve the problem of the dog or the kid or the parent or the mortgage. That we're just going to use this time to be together. We can be in silence. We can talk about a favorite spiritual passage. We can talk about something that we're thinking about in our own minds and our heart. We can, anything. But we're not problem solving. We're not going out of this moment into a different moment. So that we can just be here. And if you can add a time of meditation together, even if it's just 5 minutes, at the end of the day before you sleep, just 5 minutes, sit together before you get into bed. Otherwise, all of these problems come into bed also. Right? You're talking, you're in bed, and suddenly the dog is there, and the kids are there, and the parents are there, and everybody's in bed with you. Instead of that, just have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just sit together in meditation, in prayer, chanting or listening to chanting, recite the Hanuman Chalisa, do whatever it may be. But something that pulls you out of the distraction into your connection. And it'll make much bigger of a difference than finding joint interests or values or whatnot. Come back together, and everything else will take care of itself. Yeah, great question. Other questions that anyone has? Don't be shy. Yes. Yes, just come to the mic. I don't think it's on the area. The benefit of the microphone is that people in the camera can hear. So let's see if he can figure it out. If not, don't worry, just speak loudly and I'll repeat it. विनोद को फोन करो भैया विनोद को फोन करो No problem, that's okay, you can speak loudly. आप विनोद को फोन करो
It's okay.
Yes, that's okay. They'll call the guy who...
It's
yes.
Good evening. This is Vandana Arora from Pune. And it's been third time that I'm here now in Parmarth. And it's the first satsang I'm having it with you. And we are deeply connected as a family with Rabbi Ezekiel Malikar, sir.
I'm so sorry?
Rabbi Ezekiel Malikar, sir. He is all praises for you. I have many questions, but then I'll just try to gel up all the questions together in one query. The answer that you just gave for this question that had come online 20 years, and it's been 24 years for my marriage also. It's not only marriage, it's parents, it's siblings, it's children. Is it important, more important, to love God or to love one's family? I'm deeply inclined to renounce everything, but then there's a lot of dilemmas. So.
Yeah, of course. Beautiful. Is it more important to love God? Is it more important to love God or more important to love your family? Yes and yes. The two are not separate. If you really love God, that love of God spills over into love of all. Loving the family tends to come normally and naturally, easily, until and unless family members do something that specifically troubles you, bothers you, annoys you, harms you, etc. The love itself, though, is natural and automatic until one of those things happens. When one of those things happens, our love for God enables us to be compassionate. Ultimately, love for God is the most important. As we sing in the Arati, Sabse Unchi Prem Sagai, the highest form of love is love for God. And the family is, we're told, Vasudev Kutumbakam, the whole world is a family. So we're given this instruction to love the whole world, but at least we've got to begin with our own family. Now, that doesn't mean, there's a big difference between loving and giving up my life according to someone else's agenda. Those two things are not synonymous. A lot of times family has a specific agenda that they want you to abide by. You should become this because everybody else in the family is that. Dress like this, act like this, go here. Whether it's a matter of, we think this would be a good profession for you, you'll make a lot of money, it's prestigious. Or whether it's a matter of just family's a jet reputation, like how dare you go outside dressed like that? What are people going to think of us? Hello, kya sochenge? I always say कि पूरी जिंदगी उसी चक्कर में बर्बाद हो जाते हैं. वो जो सामने वाले क्या सोचेंगे, इतनी लोगों की जीवन बर्बाद हो जाते हैं. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to lose your life in the concern of, oh my God, what are the neighbors going to think? But a lot of times family, especially Indian families, can put that pressure on you. And it's a selfishness. They'll wrap it up like it's good for you, but ultimately it's a selfishness of, if you make this choice, it looks bad on me to the society. If our son, if our daughter, if this family member chooses X, Y, or Z, it's bad on the family jet. You see it with so many life choices that people make, whether it's what they wear, whether it's what their profession is, whether it's they choose to get married or not get married, whether it's their sexual orientation. I mean, there's so much pressure to conform. Love does not mean conformity. And remember that love goes both ways. So anyone who's trying to squish you or squash you into a mold under the guise of, don't you love me, should be asked, don't you love me? Right? I mean, do you only love me insofar as I am able to squish and squash myself into your mold? Right? So I think the ultimate answer lies in love, compassion, care, service as and when necessary. But that doesn't mean a lifetime of self-suppression under the name and the guise of service and care. There's a lot of, early middle-aged people I know, people in their 30s, 40s, who are kind of pressured by family members not to live the life that they want to live, not to explore, not to travel, not to do this, not to take that job, because, oh my God, then who's going to take care of me? And the older family members at that time are in their, 60s, early 70s. Like, they don't need to be taken care of. It's one thing, somebody's end of life, sick, dealing with some, fatal disease on the bed. Okay, that's a different story. We go back, we take care of our family members. But there's a lot of a sense of sort of entitlement that I've seen in older generations, that we're sort of entitled to the lives of our younger generations at a time when we don't need it. At a time when, okay, 60s and 70s are not 20s and 30s. You're not as necessarily strong as you used to be, but you don't need somebody to do things for you. Can walk on your own, cook on your own. You don't need that. So I think it's really important that on both sides, everyone understands that no one's dharma is to sacrifice their life just so that someone else doesn't have to step up to the challenge of having their agenda not fulfilled, or step up to the challenge of having to look at having their perceptions or their way of thinking sort of shattered and challenged. It's how things change. It's how things evolve. It's what happens with generations over and over and over again. It is meant to happen. So love God most. Love yourself in the embodiment of the divine. Love your family as also the embodiments of the divine. Love your family as those to whom you are deeply connected in gratitude in so many ways, and for whom you're always there when it's really needed. But not instead of fulfilling your life's dharma. Yeah. Beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
I live in the Netherlands, Northern Europe.
I'm so sorry, can you say your name again?
My name is Ernst. Do we have free will?
Do we have free will? Absolutely we have free will. Absolutely. I say that from a personal experience, not just my person, but we all have experience of having free will. I say it from a scientific perspective, and I say it from a spiritual perspective. So individually, we all have the experience of free will. So for example, you go to a restaurant, you pick up a menu. Maybe the mind says, oh my God, I would love to have the French fries. God, would it, the conditioned mind, French fries. But then the more conscious, thinking, rational mind, health-oriented mind says, my doctor told me to cut down on those. My cholesterol's kind of through the roof. So I think I'll have the spinach instead. Free will. Sometimes you go to the restaurant and you order the French fries because the thinking mind was tired, not present, otherwise occupied, thinking about something else, and you went in on autopilot and you ate a plate of French fries. And sometimes you're able to be there, conscious, present, and we know that there are different tools and techniques and practices that we can use to be more present, to make better decisions in each moment. It's a practice. It's something a lot of us learn how to do, how not to go with subconscious programming, but make different choices. A lot of people who were abused as children or saw abuse in the family grow up to abuse. Not all of them. Many of them, as difficult as it is to overcome childhood patterning, make really conscious decisions. I do not want to do in my family what I watched my father or my mother or my grandfather do in my family. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to make sure. So we know that there are things we can do to change how we otherwise would behave if we didn't do those things. That's the experiential piece. From the scientific piece, we know that a huge percentage of behavior, you could even say 100% of behavior, is determined by our brain. Different parts of our brain, but the hand does not raise itself. There's something in the brain, lower brain, higher brain, depending on what I'm going to do with my hand, that causes the hand to rise up. I'm going to hit somebody, probably lower brain. I'm going to feed somebody, probably higher brain. But there's aspects in the brain that cause all of that which we do. Now, we know that our spiritual practices actually change our brain. And not only spiritual practices. The way we live, the habits we begin to live with, actually change our brain. There's now lots of research on this. When I was studying neurology 30 years ago, they did not know this. We were taught, by the time the brain is fully myelinized, by the time you're a late adolescent, early 20s, like your brain is done. The only change it does is degenerate. And you're done. The best you can do at that time, if you've got a problem, is take pharmaceuticals. In the last few decades, neurology's come a full 180 degrees. now we know that so much of what we do changes our brain. So if we accept the fact that our behavior is based on our brain, and our brain is changed based on our behavior, then we are literally rewiring our brains. Meditation changes your brain. So I'm actually changing that which would be my conditioned response. Because the opposite of free will is it's all conditioned. But if I'm able to change my conditioned response through a sheer exertion of free will that forces my, lazy bum out of bed in the morning and makes me meditate, I've got free will. And then, of course, from the spiritual/religious side, which is every spiritual tradition and lineage I know of, from organized religions to indigenous traditions and everything in between, has prescriptions for practices for us to do that we are supposed to do. We are supposed to do them, whether we say do them so that you have, good karma, do them so that you're pure, do them so that it makes God happy, whatever our tradition is giving us as the reason to do them. We're given things that we are supposed to do. Good, spiritual, religious people do these things. Meditate, pray, perform your religious ceremonies, serve others, whatever it is. If there were no free will, and if everything were predestined, there would be absolutely no basis upon which religious leaders, prophets, mystics, sages, elders would tell us, be disciplined, do this, act in a different way than you've been acting, change in this way, engage in this behavior, form this habit. Now you are coming of age, your time of doing this is over, now start doing this. Right? All of these traditions have coming of age ceremonies in which the teaching is, stop acting the way you've been acting. You're no longer a child. Now you are a man, you are a woman, act in a different way. And if everything were simply conditioned and predestined, there would be no meaning for any of these teachings, for any of these rituals. So we absolutely have free will. And yet, you can go in a circle and you can say, well, that which I do is based on my brain. My brain has been formed based on that which I've done, therefore. But it's somewhere along the line I made a choice. I made a choice that unlike the 10,000 or 20,000 mornings prior to this one, when I slept in and then scrolled TikTok from my bed for an hour, that I was going to get up and I was going to meditate. And that exertion, that is free will. Now, something had to precipitate that. It may have been me hitting bottom, it may have been me reading a certain book, it may have been me meeting a spiritual person. Something has triggered it, of course. It may not have arisen out of the blue. But my instincts, the very conditioned flow of my being is towards sleeping in and scrolling TikTok. But I exerted that free will, that conscious presence, to override the autopilot of my system and do something different. Slowly, 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 that will become my conditioned way of being. It's not going to require that level of free will exertion every day. It'll become a new habit. But yeah, we most definitely have free will. Question is how we use it. Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evenings, everyone. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us online. I look so forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And in the meantime, please do be sure, as I always try to remind everyone, to take advantage of the beautiful full day worth of activities here at Parmarth, our morning fire ceremony, the yajna, the yoga, the meditation, the philosophy, all of the beautiful offerings all day long. Everything is open to everyone, whether you're staying here or not staying here. So please definitely be sure to fill your day with as much as you possibly can. And I look forward to being together in the evening tomorrow. And so much love to you all.